So, I'm a member of a Facebook community called Lenguajero, where there's a lot of Spanish speakers learning English and English speakers learning Spanish. Lately, people have been posting videos showing off or practicing their language skills in the language that they're learning. At this point in my life, I'm pretty confident. About using English in everyday situations, so I thought that in order to challenge myself, I would do something that I've never done before in English, and that is explaining Grimm's Law. I've only done it once before in front of an audience, and it was in Spanish, and I had more time, and I'm going to try to do this in let's say under 15 minutes. So, Grimm's Law is a very known sound change in Germanic historical linguistics or Germanic philology. And it's what's known as a chain shift, and I'm going to explain what a chain shift is as I'm explaining Grimm's Law, and it'll kind of explain itself. So, the basics. In Proto-Indo-European, the reconstructed common ancestor of all Indo-European languages, there was a three-part system of plosives. You had voiceless plosives, voiced plosives, and voiced aspirated plosives. And the system looked like this. You had p, t, k, k, b, d, g, g, and I'm not very good at pronouncing these, but I'm going to try. B, v, g, and g. Probably somebody that speaks like a modern living language that has aspirated voice plosives would do a better job, but I'm doing what I can. So as you can see, this is a three-part system, and what happened in Proto-Germanic, the dialect of Proto-Indo-European that started to dialectalize and to separate from Proto-Indo-European, and in turn Proto-Germanic is the common ancestor of all modern Germanic languages like English, Norwegian, Swedish, German, Dutch, and so on. So what Grimm's Law is a change. It's actually three changes. So what first happens is that the voiceless plosives of Proto-Indo-European, p, t, k, and q, turn to voiceless fricatives instead. So p changes to p, which later on changes to f, a labiodental fricative instead of a bilabial voiceless fricative, labiodental voiceless fricative. Then t changes to f, k changes to h, which later changes to h in word initial position, and I'll be giving you some examples, and q changes to h. So, examples of this, and I'll be using Latin as an example of a non-Germanic Indo-European language mostly, and then I'll be using English, Dutch, and German for the examples. So, the change from p to h and then to f, for example, in Latin you say pedis, but in English you say foot, and in Dutch foot. As an example, it changed from t to th. In Latin you say tertius, but in English you say third. As an example of the change from k to h and then to h, we have Latin canis, cognate with Spanish can, and then we have English hound, Dutch hond, and German hund. Changed from q to h, we have in Latin quod, and we have in English what, which was originally what, and remains that way in some conservative accents of English in some regions. Okay, so now that we are looking at this, now that the voiceless plosives have shifted to voiceless fricatives instead, this space in the system, the voiceless plosive space, is vacated. So what happens? This is what makes this a chain shift. The voiced plosives become voiceless, moving from this space to this space. So B changes to P, D to T, G to K, and G to K. Examples. We have, for example, a Proto-Indo-European root. Let's see if I can pronounce this well. Deel, and in English and Dutch, deep. Change from D to T. In Latin we have dicken, cognitive dies, and cognitive Spanish dies, in English 10, Dutch 10. Change from G to K. In Latin we have gelu, and in English cold, Dutch koud, and German kalt. Change from G to K. In Lithuanian, a non-Germanic Proto-Indo-European language, we have gyvas. In English we have quick, and in Dutch quick. So, voiceless plosives become voiceless fricatives, vacating this space, which is then filled by the voiced plosives becoming voiceless plosives. What happens next? The voiced plosive space is empty, and so the aspirated voiced plosives become just plain voiced plosives, like this. Now, do you see why we call it a chain shift? The voiceless plosives became voiceless fricatives, kind of pulling the system in this direction, which then pulls this in this direction, and then this in this direction. The image is flipped, so I kind of have to figure out what I'm doing here so that it shows up well on your end. As you can also see, I'm recording this video standing up. This is a first for me. I'm standing up, but I'm stationary. Not a first. I've recorded like this like a couple times before, but I was just sick of sitting down. Okay, let's keep on moving. So the aspirated voiceless plosives become just plain. The aspirated voice plosives become just plain voice plosives. Examples of this. B becomes, and actually, probably, there's an intermediate stage of them becoming, either voiced plosives or voiced fricatives, depending on the context. And from there is a change to just voiced plosives, at least in English. So, for example, in Proto-Indo-European we have the root ber, and in Latin that is fero. This is because of a change in Latin in Latin there's some changes to these voiced aspirated plosives a change that goes in another direction. So as you can see, the end result here is f. So from ber we have Latin fero, and in English bear. From dur we have Latin foris, and English door, and German Tür. Why does German have a voiceless sound here? That's another story, hopefully the focus of another video. It's something called a High German consonant shift, which is another chain shift that happened after Grimm's law. Then, change from G to G, we have in Proto-Indo-European hostis, in Latin hostis, and in English guest, and German Gast. And as for the labialized version of G, that's hard to pronounce. It depends. Before N, it just becomes a G. So it goes from G, from ng to ng, and then in English, in word final position, just becomes the velar nasal ng. So we have, for example, examples of this are words like sing, and in Dutch zingen, and in German singen. Then in other positions there's different changes. Sometimes it changes to w, sometimes to g, and sometimes to b. For example, in Sanskrit, another non-Germanic Indo-European language, we have garma, and in English that is warm, Dutch warm, and German warm. Okay, we are at the 10-minute mark. Let's see what I can do with the next 4.5 minutes. Let's talk about exceptions to Grimm's law. Voiceless plosives do not become fricatives after the sound, the F sound. For example, the sp cluster. In Latin, spuere, English is spew in English, and spew in Dutch. Latin stare is stand in English, and stan in Dutch. Then we have the sk group, which usually turns into sh in English. So in Lithuanian we have skurdus, and in English short. And then we have sk, the sound followed by k, the labialized voiceless velar plosive. For example, in Irish, I mean by this I mean the Gaelic, Irish Gaelic. I'm probably totally butchering this, but it's something like skell. Probably the vowel is completely wrong. In English is scold, and in Dutch schelde, and in German schelten. Other exceptions: when t is after another plosive that is not t, only the first t becomes a fricative, but not the second. So, for example, the group pt becomes ft. Double T geminate T just becomes geminate T. Then kit becomes hit, and kut becomes hit. For example, an example of the first one, in Greek we have kleptis, and in Gothic hlyptis, hlyptus. In Latin atta, and in Gothic atta. Same. Example of the change from kit to hit, we have octo in Latin, cognitive ocho in Spanish. In English it is eight, which later becomes eight. And in Dutch acht, and in German acht. And then the change from quit to hit, in Latin we have noctis, and in English nicht, which becomes ni, and later night. And then in Dutch nacht, and in German nacht. The third group of exceptions to Grimm's law are cases that fall under Werner's law, and that maybe will be the subject of another video. So in this video we have learned about Grimm's law and why it is a chain shift and how a chain shift works. So that's actually pretty much exactly 14 minutes. Please leave a comment explaining how clear this was to you. I went very fast, and I didn't give a lot of examples. There was little to no preparation here. It was more like a challenge to see if I could do this in English without floundering. Either way, I'd like to hear from any comment, especially if this has helped you. If you had this explained before and you didn't quite get it, and now it's a little easier. So please leave me feedback. And signing off, Get Real Language. Until next time, I'll see you.